And we're on. This is the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I'm your host, Jason Larkins, where we talk cheer, we talk life, and we talk whatever comes to mind. 5, 6, 7, 8, let's get started.
Turn it up, you tuning into Let's Talk Cheer with Jason Larkins. We're talking cheer, we're talking like we know we're always talking. So listen up, you boy, I'm about to go all in. 5, 6, 7, 8, we're on, let's begin.
This is episode number 101. Not sure if there's going to be a 102, but thank you for joining. We have a great episode for you guys today. Today, Brittany wants to hear my thoughts on a post that gained a lot of attention in one of her Cheer Mom Facebook pages, and I'm telling you, I go off on a rant. We also have our question of the week about, is it better to compete at smaller events and win, or bigger events with a smaller chance of winning? And then we wrap up the show by me asking Brittany to reflect on these last 100 episodes, as I did in episode number 99. If it's your first time here, thank you for checking out the show. You literally have 100 other episodes to catch up on, but so that you don't miss out on any more, be sure to subscribe. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're on Google Podcasts. So again, be sure to subscribe. For everyone else, be sure to follow us on Instagram and on TikTok, where we post clips from the show and also do a lot of other fun videos and other giveaways there as well. So like I said, we do giveaways here on the podcast, but we also do separate giveaways on our social media. So be sure to follow JasonC.Larkins on TikTok and the Let's Talk Cheer podcast on IG. Shout out to my mother, Sheila, Claire, Sarah, Robin, Adriana, Chanel, Tamara, myself, my not-so-mysterious supporter, Heather Peterson of Flipside, Pablo, representing for all the cheer dads out there, our mate Michelle, Mike, the lean, mean coaching machine, Heidi, Adam, and our two newest supporters, Jasmine and Casey. If you want to be added to the Cool Kids list, you can financially support the show for as little as 99 cents a month by clicking the link in the show notes link in the description. And for those looking for the best free way to support the podcast, all you have to do is share the podcast. Send it to a friend. Send it to another coach. Guys, send it to a friend. Send it to another coach. Do it right now. Or you can post it on your social media. And by posting it on your social media, you're entered to win a free coaches training with me. All you have to do is take a screenshot of an episode of the podcast, post that on your Instagram story, and tag our Instagram in the post. That's it. Share it on your story. Tag the Let's Talk Cheer podcast in the post, and you are entered to win. The winner will be announced in episode 105. The more shares, the more entries. Someone is going to win. Why not you? I'm the cheer director at American Cheer, AKSC.com, sharing with you my life, running a program, managing a staff, coaching the athletes, and working with the parents. And on the other side of the microphone is a cheer mom who represents all you parent listeners out there. Don't be less when you can be more. Yo, me and B have already been talking for quite a bit, but now we got to do the whole, now we're recording. So B, how have you been?
I've been good. We're preparing for Nashville. So like you guys as coaches, you guys are getting those routines like cleaned up and everything like that. But somehow I got like thrown into making swag bags for one of the girls' teams, which I didn't really get thrown into it. Like I kind of like was like, I'll make sweatshirts because I kind of do that stuff on the side. And then my like creative juices started flowing. So I was like, oh, I want to make these and that and this and all these things. So I finally like sat down and like got most of that like done. And fun fact, I'm going to do the rest of it today. So, just preparing for this competition. We had so much fun last year. So just getting ready for that. Other than that, just been slaying nails.
Yeah, man. There we go. Hey, book a time with B. Get your nails done. Let's go. Even your boy's gonna book a time so I can get my cuticles right. So, before the summit. I can't go to the summit looking crazy. So, all right. Yeah, I'm excited for Nashville. Brendan was just in and, you know, redid the routines basically, right? So he came in and there's things that we look at throughout the season and we're like, oh, we got to fix that. Oh, we got to fix that, right? And I've just been taking notes on everything that needs to get fixed. And Ashley and I will talk, or Josh and I will talk, whoever. And we're just like, okay, we need to make sure that we get this taken care of. So, I sent Brendan the longest email, like the longest. And it literally ended up being a 6-page PDF. And some of it was like, I just decided to put stuff on its own page. So it wasn't like a full 6 pages, but I mean, like when you open it up, you're like, oh, this is 6 pages long. But I just wrote out everything that we needed to attack. And it's between 3 teams. So it's not like it was for one team. And I just wrote down everything that we needed to attack during Summit Choreo. And so he did a great job. Like, these routines look good. A lot of really good stuff. So I'm really happy with what he was able to do. So hopefully, these changes put us in a great position for 1UP. And then obviously as we head to the summit. So I'm really looking forward to 1UP. Got a lot of good friends that are going to be out there. One just reached out to me yesterday. He was like, hey, I saw that you guys were on the list. Let's meet up. So a lot of like old friends that I haven't seen in a while. So I'm excited for 1UP and I'm ready to make this happen. Like, let's go. Let's get it. And yeah. So anyway, B, let's get into what's popping with the parents. Now, we haven't done this segment in a while, so this is when Brittany sees something on one of her Facebook pages, and she's like, man, this is something that we've got to talk about on the podcast. We've got to get Jason's perspective on just on the crazy things cheer parents say online. So, B, you had one. Let's hear what these parents are talking about.
Yeah, okay. So, funny thing is, I saw this on one of the parents' pages, and then like a day or 2 days later, I had a mom reach out to me on Facebook and was like, please bring this up on the podcast. So I was like, oh, great minds think alike. Yes, we will be talking about it. So
Yeah.
this was from an anonymous person, and it said, varsity scoring needs to be investigated, maybe even added to their lawsuit. We have been to several different varsity competitions this season. We have done the same routine and have had scores ranging from an 86 to a 96. I understand some fluctuations for technique, but this is ridiculous. This weekend, we all of a sudden have a legality in our routine, and no one has mentioned it before either. I call BS. Scores are very clearly based on personal relationships and padded pockets. There should be consistency across the board and clearly more judges training. Depending on the region of the competition, you can almost guess who will win, not by skill, but by gym owners' connections. Stop allowing gym owners to sponsor varsity events behind the scenes. Mandate unbiased judging panels and be consistent. The blatant level of greed and fraud is sickening. So that was pretty long.
Oh, B.
I wanted to paraphrase a little bit, but the last couple of sentences in that post, I was like, oh, this needs to be brought up. So
Yeah.
can you give us
No,
your
there's just
thoughts
so
on
much. There's just so much. So here's what we're do. You keep reading or read it again, and I'm just gonna yell stop, and I'm just gonna go. We're talking about that right there. So we'll because there's so much to unpack in that post, and it's just there's just so much to unpack with that post. So go ahead, just read from the beginning. I'm gonna yell stop, and then we'll just talk about whatever sentence you just read.
Okay. So, varsity scoring needs to be investigated, maybe even added to their lawsuit. We have been to several different varsity competitions this season. We have done the same routine and have scores ranging from 86 to 96. I understand some
Stop.
fluctuations.
Cut. 86 to 96. Guys. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. All right, here we go. 86 to 96. Just general context. A 96 is a pretty good score. It's a decent score. It's a decent score. You probably won't win the summit with it. But you'll win a good amount of competitions with a 96. You'll win a handful, right? Depending on what region you're in, who you're competing, your division and all those things, but you will win some competitions with a 96, 100%. You're not winning anything with an 86. You're not winning anything with an 86. So it's just hard for me to believe that this team is going from winning competitions, right? A team that could easily compete top 3 at most events that they go to. I'm not saying at NCAA or like some of the really, really big events, but they're going to be a top 3 team at some of these competitions. Again, depends on what region they're in. But at 86, no matter what region you're in, you're not winning a thing, right? So those are like 2 different teams. Like I was mad a couple years ago, or it was last year, right? We had a 95. We had the highest score of the competition. We had like a 95.5, and then we dropped to like a 93, whatever, right? That's a huge drop. And I go, man, we did the same routine. But although I was very upset with the scores, I can make a logical connection how we dropped from a 95 to a 93. It's not that, even though it is a really big swing, it's not that big of a swing where it's like inconceivable for that to happen. It is inconceivable that a team can hit routines and be a 96 at one competition and 86 at another competition. Now, I'm going to take this parent at their word that they did have a 96 something at one competition, 86 something at another competition. But one of those routines, they did not perform well. Another routine, they did perform well. So before when I originally saw this, there was something really bothering me about that 86. And I'm like, an 86, it's impossibly low. It's like impossibly low to get an 86. So I decided to do some math. And I did some math, B, and here were my results. If they just take off, if you get a 0.3, they take off 0.3, just with one driver in each category, right? So in stunting, they take off a 0.1 in top girls, a 0.1 in bases, and a 0.1 in transitions and whatever, right? So for those of you guys don't know, the way the execution score works is when they look at your routine and they see something that kind of bothers them, they're going to take it off of your execution score, right? So we'll use tumbling. If they're looking at your tumbling and they go, oh man, their synchronization was a little off, they're going to take off 0.1. And they go, oh, their ankles were a little bit apart, they're going to take off 0.1 for body control. And they go, oh, and their landings were kind of sloppy, they're going to take off 0.1 for landings, right? And so that ends up being, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. They end up taking off 0.3. So let's say you got the minimum score in all of the difficulty not the minimum score. Pyramid is on a range, 3.5 to 4.0. So let's say you got a 3.5, like the lowest score in range, but you did everything else in range, right? So this is a coach who knows what they're doing. They know how to read. They put all of the kids in the right sections. They have all the proper amount of athletes, and they're doing the proper amount of skills in each section, right? The minimum score you'd get in all of those categories, doing, the required amount of jumps and required amount of baskets. And then you got a 0.3 in all your technique, or you only took off 0.3 in all of your technique scores, right? So I got a 3.7 in stunts, a 3.7 in tumbling execution, a 3.7 in jump execution, right? 3.7s across the board. And then just the bare minimums when it came to dance, and the bare minimums when it came to routine creativity, right? I gave all bare minimum scores for everything. That team would score an 88.4. No deductions, right? No deductions. They lost, they got 0.7s basically in everything in technique. An 88.4. So it's just hard for me to believe that this team scored an 86 and hit a routine. Now, my guess is that at that 86, that routine was not executed and that they did not hit. Right? Wasn't executed and they did not hit, and that's why you got an 86. It's not varsity's fault. I wish I could see the routines. I honestly wish I could see the routines. So my advice: be better. Don't blame varsity. All right, keep going. Off my soapbox.
This weekend, we all of a sudden have a legality in our routine that
Stop. All of a sudden, you didn't all of a sudden have a legality in your routine. You had a legality in your routine the entire season. You didn't all of a sudden have a legality. And the problem with that is that, and here's actually the real problem with that, is you did have a legality in your routine. If you didn't have a legality in your routine, they would not have called the legality. Right? They wouldn't have called the legality. So you had the legality there the whole time, which means previously they weren't calling the legality, which means previously you were getting a favor done for you. Right? So you're saying that your gym is no longer benefiting from this favor you're getting, and we want to get our favors again because you have had a legality in your routine the entire season. Right? Now, anytime you have a legality in your routine, that is the coach's fault. 90% of the time, right? It's the coach's fault that you had the legality in your routine. Coaches are in charge of legalities. Now, sometimes kids, they grab it the wrong way, like at that competition, and things happen. I've heard of times when they kids overspin. Like I heard of, I remember seeing something on like ASGA where you're not allowed to twist and release to the top in level 4. Right? You're not allowed to twist and release to the top in level 4, right? In stunts. And like the kids kind of caught it weird and they did a little turn. And so they called them as legality. And it wasn't like, we didn't choreograph them to turn. They just turned because they were trying to save the stunt or whatever. And so, sometimes, and I guess you could put that on the kids if you want, like, oh, they just didn't perform it the way we're supposed to perform it. But other than that, 90% of the time, legalities are on the coaches for not sending in their videos, for not, knowing the rules or whatever. And sometimes, you don't get caught. Sometimes, judges have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to, and it's not like there's a bunch of legality judges up there. They have one legality judge, and that he or she is looking at the entire routine, and they're trying to figure out, are things legal or things not legal? And they have, 5 minutes basically to do that. So they do miss things. And yeah, it frustrates me when I get a legality 3 competitions in, and I'm really thinking it would have really been nice to get that legality called our first competition. But, it is what it is. It happens. But every single time it happens, it's not the judge's fault for catching my legalities. That's my fault. It's on me as coaches. People just don't like to take blame for anything. But you didn't all of a sudden have a legality. You've had a legality in the routine the entire year. Go ahead, B.
Okay. Scores are very clearly based on personal relationships and padded pockets.
I once wrote a blog called Your Daughter Won't Fly Forever. But with Fly Right, she might fly a little bit longer. There's more pressure on flyers than any other position out there. Help your athlete fly right. Fly Right by Tumble Track is the personal stunt stand that helps cheerleaders fine-tune their skills and perfect their body control. Made with heavy steel construction, it's easy to store away when not in use, so your athlete can train anytime, anywhere. Give the gift of flying a little bit longer with Fly Right by Tumble Track. Link in the show notes. Guys, I want to stop everything. I want to stop everything. What are we talking about right now? Like, what are we talking about right now? And I just feel like people just aren't able to lose a competition and say that team was better than me, right? Like, can't we just say that team was better than me, right? We have done, in my life, I can say this as a coach at least. I don't know what happened when I was, on teams. But even when I was on teams, I was on really good teams. But do we have instances, honestly, where we looked at the team that won and went, the only way that team beat that team, they must have paid someone off, right? Like, wouldn't we see that and be like, wouldn't it, like, if we took like Youth Black to compete against, TGLC, right? And we're like, how do Youth Black beat TGLC? Like, that's like, they must have paid them off. But when, I don't know, TGLC beats Stingray's Steel, I don't go, man, Stingrays must have paid, or TGLC, Top Gun must have paid them off, right? Like, is there like a real instance where we're like, yeah, man, it was really obvious. Now, sometimes you go, oh man, I really think that team should have won. But, it's the nature of the beast, and that's like part of the sport. But there's never a time when I really thought there's no way that team beat that team. They must have paid someone off. Now, again, I was trying to make this point earlier. I've done lots of winning as a coach, won NCA numerous amounts of times as a coach. 3 different programs, actually. CBU, American, PCM. Won Summit plenty of times. 2 different programs, right? I've never paid a judge. I don't know, right? Like, it's the integrity of the sport. I've never, ever even thought about how I even approach paying. And why would you want to pay a judge? I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. It just makes like this, they're padding these things. I don't know. Like, and the gyms that you would think would have the money, who would have the money to do so? It'd be gyms with lots of kids. I'm not implicating anyone. Guys, don't go saying Jason's saying these things. When we go to these competitions, right? When I'm talking about Summit and NCA, we've won Summit and NCA against these big name gyms. And I know for sure I'm not paying off judges. So it's just crazy to me. It's just really hard for people to say flat out that team was better than me, or flat out I'm just, we're just not good enough to compete against these guys, and we've got to be better. So anyway, keep going. I'm not sure if I'm gonna stop you again, but we'll see. I don't know.
There should be more consistency across the board and clearly more judges training. Depending on the region of the competition, you can almost guess who will win, not by skill, but by gym owners' connections. So stop allowing gym owners to sponsor varsity events behind the scenes, mandate unbiased judging panels, and be consistent. The blatant level of greed and fraud is sickening.
Okay, so here's the other thing about judges panels. They don't. I'll talk about. There's 2 more things. Scores spiking out of region, or scores in different regions, and then varsity judges. So what happens is some regions you go to, judges will look at, and this is why it's really hard to use scores. And this is why guys, I've said this forever and I'm saying it again. We should be more concerned with correct placements than with the score actually being correct. Because when you go to a region, let's say we're somewhere and cheerleading is not popping there, right? It's just in its, I don't want to say infancy, but it's, mediocre cheerleading. Judges will give mediocre scores, right? Or, and a mediocre score, I guess, is a 3-7 in stunt technique, right? They're going to give a 3-7 because it's kind of mediocre, right? And when we come down Southern California, well, not just Southern Cal, but California in general, a really competitive market. We have really, really good teams here, and everyone's good. And so our 3-7 is not the same as a 3-7 in Montana, right? No offense to Montana. I'm not sure if we have any listeners in Montana. But a 3-7 in California isn't a 3-7 in Montana, right? And so if we decide as American Cheer to take our team, right? We take Junior Blue up to Montana, and they've been scoring 3-7s all year. And we get up there and we have a couple Montana teams go, and they score a 3-7, and maybe the good Montana team scores a 3-8, and then Junior Blue goes, and they go, oh man, this team was really, really good. And I actually probably would have given them a 3-8 in California, or 3-7 in California, but they are just significantly better than the rest of these teams out here. We've got to give them a 3.9 now because they're just significantly better than everyone else. And so you'll see teams, and the same thing happens with the judges, right? They're used to seeing a certain score or a certain like style of team in a region, and then a team from out of region comes and the scores just spike like that, right? So, we saw it. Now, again, this is my personal opinion, but the lower levels in California, I think we are the toughest competitors in the country as far as lower levels are concerned. Levels 1 through 5, we have the best lower levels in the country. That's just my opinion. Don't be offended. Like multiple, from top to bottom, from all the different gyms that are here in California, right? And so, we saw, Junior 2 was a crazy division, and it was crazy when we were at Spirit Sports, and one of the teams in our division, and I don't even know if they won, but they ended up getting like a 99.5 at Cheersport. Cheer Force Simi Valley scored a 99.5 at Cheersport. And I really think it's because one, they're used to competing against California teams, right? So the competition is really, really steep. And then they go out of region and they compete against teams that aren't necessarily the level of the teams in California. And so they just stand out against those teams. And once the judges already kind of set a bar of where the score should be, and then they see this team that's just clearly better than everyone, their scores like super spike. I don't think that Becky paid anyone off so that she could, win. I just think they were just better than everyone, right? Now, the other thing was, judges, varsity judges, right? Here's the other thing with varsity judges. There are judges who judge at varsity events who do work at varsity. However, there are lots and lots of judges who do not work for varsity. They're just judging a varsity event. I'm going to say that again. There are lots of judges who judge varsity events who do work for varsity, right? Like they work for varsity. But there are lots and lots and lots of judges who do not work for varsity. They are judges who judge varsity events. And that happens at every competition you go to, right? A couple of years ago, I got a random text message from a number that said, "Hey, do you still work for CBU?" And I didn't know who it was. I don't know, I just see the number just pops up. I don't know who it is. And I'm like, man, who is this? And I'm like, who is this? And they won't tell me who they are. And so I do this freaking cat and mouse game with them because they won't tell me who they are. And eventually I find out it's Stephanie Amarati, who is the scoring director for varsity, right? How am I thinking? I would have been nicer to you if I would have known this was Stephanie originally. So, but she, I go, no, I don't work there. I'm not officially on payroll anymore, but I do work with the kids at least once a year still. And I talk to the coaches every day and blah, blah. Like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's up? And she's like, I was going to have you judge nationals this year, college nationals, NCAA college nationals this year, but you're still affiliated with CBU. So never mind. That's a true story. Are you affiliated with CBU anymore? Yes, I am. You're not judging. That was a real conversation I had. Owners, directors, coaches, we are in comp season now. So if you're looking for a second set of eyes as you're gearing up for your big events, I'd love to help out. You send me a video of your routine and I send you a video back of your routine with what I would fix and how I would fix it. Teams I've done this for have gone on to be world champions, NCAA All-Star champions, NCAA Collegiate champions, Summit champions, and D2 Summit champions. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, you can reach me via email at JasonLarkins, or you can reach me on Instagram at JasonLarkins, or on the Let's Talk Cheer podcast Instagram, Let's Talk Cheer podcast. So anyway, I don't know, B, you want to add on to anything about that?
not that I think this way, but I have heard people at competitions say that, or think and say that, the scores are based on, personal relationships. I have heard that before. Um, I've even, randomly heard people talking about it from our gym. I have heard people be like, oh, Jason knows people at varsity, so that's why they score so high. I've heard that. I've heard things, so I I can kind of understand why they would think that. I mean, I don't think that, but when you don't know, like you just explained a lot, so when you don't know things, it's easy to jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
Um and as far as like
And here's the thing. We all know people at varsity. All of us do. The entire world, especially now, there might not be with all the big gyms, and we'll just stick in California. Us, Cali, Cheer Force, SCV, SC Cheer, whoever. Did I already say South Bay Divas? Everyone, OC All Stars, all of us know people at varsity. We've been in the industry too long. It's impossible not to have friends at varsity. They're everywhere, right? We go to all their competitions every single year since forever, right? It's impossible not to know people at varsity. It's literally impossible. We all have friends, but there's never a time, but we are not winning because I have friends at varsity. We're winning because our routines look good, right? I get, people ask my opinion. Hey, Jason, I want you to come work with my kids. They're not asking me to work with their kids because they think our teams look bad. They're asking me to work with their kids because they think our routines look good, right? Like, I call up people from other gyms, not because they have connections at varsity, because I think they're good coaches, right? And I don't think there's anyone with a straight face who can look at one of our routines and go, the only reason they're winning is because Jason, has a friend at varsity. The thing, we all have friends at varsity. All of us do. So I'm not the only person who knows people at varsity. Like the entire world knows people at varsity. Like who doesn't know people at varsity? And I get maybe you're a brand new gym and you came up, you started doing rec cheerleading, and then you're doing cheerleading in a park, and all of a sudden you saw all-star cheerleading. Now you want to do an all-star gym, and you don't know anyone in the industry. And you're like, yeah, I get that person doesn't know anyone at varsity, but everyone knows, Allie from CCE. They just won their first NCAA championship, right? Allie, you should feel offended. They think you only won because you know people at varsity, right? And it discredits the hard work of those coaches and discredits the hard work of the athletes who are in their blood, sweat, and tears. You see how many laps and burpees and reps these kids do at practice, right? And it's not because if I knew people at varsity, why would we work so hard, right? Like, why would we work so hard? I'm just going, hey, guys, just get out there. Coach got you back. We're going to make it happen. Stop it, man. Stop it. This is ridiculous.
I can't. I'm just telling you my opinion.
I
I
know
don't.
it just doesn't make sense.
I
Why
know
would
it
we work
doesn't.
so hard?
It's very true. But people's minds, I think, just like wander sometimes. Like people's minds wander because like we win. I mean, we don't win every competition, but I can understand. The last thing I will say about this is it said stop allowing gym owners to sponsor varsity events behind the scenes. Is that something that happens? I mean, because I would have never thought about that. I would have never thought like, oh, Jason has a social or like a social gathering with varsity employees to get us brownie points or something like that. I would have never thought that before. So I'm asking you, like, is that something that happens? Do gym owners sponsor events for varsity so they can, get brownie points or something like that?
That's above my pay grade, right? I've never been invited to one, right? I mean, there's social events. I don't know of a gym that sponsors an event. I don't even know what that, like when I read that or when you read it, I didn't even know like what that actually meant. When you said it the way you said it just now, like when you paraphrased it, yeah, there are like parties, like Infinity has the Worlds Party. Like Infinity sponsors a party at Worlds, or at least they used to. I'm not sure if they still do. I haven't been to Worlds in a couple of years. But Infinity used to sponsor the coaches party every year, but it's Infinity, right? The shoe company. And you know, sometimes you go to events and they'll have like last year NCA had a there's another company there, event producer that's trying to start like a new event, you know, new competitions. And so they had a party at NCA. Well, in Dallas. It wasn't at NCA, but in Dallas, and they invited all the coaches to go to it. But again, that was for the coaches. Like, it wasn't a varsity thing. It was like, hey, we want to compete against varsity, and we're going to have this party so all the coaches can go, so you guys can come to our events, right? There are some parties that happen from varsity competitors. Again, maybe it's just above my pay grade that some, you know, megagym.com is laying like, hey, I'm gonna throw you guys a party. But the thing is, there's not been a time when I've lost a competition and I felt that the only reason we lost is because something fishy was going on in the background. I've never lost a competition and felt we lost because something fishy was going on in the background. Sometimes I feel like, man, I don't think that team deserved, you know, quite that high of a score. It is what it is. I disagree. Sometimes I feel like, we didn't get, I really wish we would have gotten that score. Like, I don't agree with all the scores. I'm not saying I agree with every single score that judges put out there, but there's never been a time when I personally felt the reason we lost a competition was because something fishy was going on in the background. Again, why would we work so hard? Like, why would, you know, you hear about, the grueling practices some of these gyms have, right? Why would they work so hard then? Like, if it was already taken care of on the back end, why would you work so hard and do all these things? Why would we spend so much money? Like, we just brought Brendan in, right, to redo the routines. That cost real money, right? That was real money. That's real money we paid Brendan. Why would we waste money and have him redo routines if it was already taken care of on the back end, you know? Why would they bring in, and why would these other big gyms bring in the best choreographers or bring in the best music, you know, people, and to do this if it was already taken care of on the back end, you know? So I just think people want excuses when their teams just don't win. The other thing I said is, here we are again complaining about the score sheet, and we're all, as long as there is a team that comes in second place, there's going to be people who complain about the score sheet. And I've said that for a very long time now. As long as teams continue to get second place, heaven forbid third place or fourth place, there are going to be people complaining about the score sheet because they refuse to take ownership and accountability for themselves and their routines and their gyms and their athletes and, you know, all those things. So anyway, all right, well, we've spent this horse is dead, and I am now tired of kicking it. So we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna get to the question of the week. Finally,
Sounds good.
Hey, Let's Talk Cheer podcast listeners, I need to tell you about the #1 All-Star Cheer Conference this summer. I'm going to be speaking at it as a guest speaker, so you already know it's going to be fire. The Next Gen Summer Conference will be in Dallas June 23rd through the 25th. This conference is perfect for everyone in your gym. There will be skills classes for the coaches, leadership and management classes for the directors, and business classes for the owners. Guest instructors will include myself, Jason Larkins, Romel Osuna of World Cup, Adam Forte of Forte Spirit Solutions, and the whole crew from Next Gen. Make sure to head on over to ngconferences.com to register today. And we are back, and right now we're gonna get into this question of the week. And real quick, before we get into the sounds like that question of the week, I want to wrap this up. Guys, my parents did not raise me to make excuses, right? I couldn't have excuses with my parents. It didn't matter what I did. I come up with the greatest excuse. And my parents did not let me have excuses. So it's like in my DNA not to make excuses. I just can't do it. I want to make excuses. Believe me, I want to have an excuse just like everyone. I just told this to some kids the other day I was coaching, and they came up to me and they said, well, coach, it's impossible to do this. You can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. And I say, hey, my football coaches tell me this all the time. Excuses are like buttholes. We all got them and they all stink, you know? And so, like, just stop making excuses. All right, I'm done. For real. Horse dead. Done kicking it. The Sounds Like That question of the week is brought to you guys by Sounds Like That. If you're looking for some hot fire cheer music, guys, call Sounds Like That. Go to soundslikethat.com. Link in the show notes, link in the description. They'll hook you up with some fire music. Season's wrapping up. Maybe we should have Casey on the show. Casey, come on the show, man. Let's get you on the show and let's talk about Sounds Like That. And, you know, because I'm tired of hearing terrible cheer music. Anyway, B, hook us up with the Sounds Like That question of the week.
All right. So our question of the week is, in your opinion, which is better? Attending a competition where the divisions and teams are sparse, so guaranteed a win and ability to earn a bid, or attending a competition where the divisions are deep with hard teams to go up against, but you don't guarantee a win and a bid earned?
There you go. Great question. What do I think is better? Attending a competition where there's not a ton of teams there, so you pretty much are guaranteed a win or a bid, or attending competitions where there's lots of teams and the teams are tough and the divisions are deep and, you know, but it's not guaranteed. So I think number one, if I could only choose one of those things, it would be to actually go and compete, right? Competition makes you better. Just having someone else to compete against simply just makes you better as a person, makes you better as a coach. It makes the athletes better. The pressure of having to compete against someone makes you rise to the occasion and it builds your character as a person. So, you know, I do CrossFit and I can speak on personal experience right now as a struggling athlete, right? That when there's someone in my class, right? If there's just someone in my class, I definitely work harder, right? And, you know, if they are just a flat out better athlete than me, then I'm trying not to let them get too far ahead of me. If they are a comparable athlete to me, then I'm trying to, you know, compete and beat them and have a better score or have a better time or, you know, lift more weight or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to, you know, compete, right? I can feel the competitiveness come out. And if someone, and I can see, and there's lots of times when I'll get out, let's say I am the best athlete in the class that day. We're doing lifts or workouts that complement my particular skill set. And so I'm able to be the fastest or the strongest person. Let's say, you know, when we do the Metcons, I'm happy to be like the fastest person. If I'm like clearly in the lead, right, then I 100% slow down, right? I'm clearly in the lead. I won't go as hard as I know I would if someone were close to me, right? And so I feel it as an athlete in my little sport that I do at, you know, 9:30 every morning. And so, you know, competing against teams makes you better. Now, that's kind of in the way the question is framed is like, which one is better? But, you know, in the reality of trying to put together a competition schedule, I don't think there's anything wrong with teams scheduling in a cupcake to either build confidence for their kids, to have the teams go out and actually compete on the floor, like in a low pressure environment, or just to get an easy bid. Like if you're trying to go to Worlds or Summit, no one really cares where you got the bid, especially if you're a team that can compete. You know, you just want to put yourself in position to get a bid. So I remember a couple years ago, Visalia, which Visalia is about 45 minutes north of where we are here in Bakersfield. And it's it's a small town. It's not a destination city here in California, but there's a competition there. There's a, excuse me, there's a summit bid event in Visalia, California. There's not any gyms really close to Visalia. We might be the closest gym to Visalia, 45 minutes away. I'm not even sure who else is I'm not sure what other D1 programs are anywhere near Visalia. So, and it's not a destination. It's not, there's not like, it's not a destination, place. And so it was a small event. And I remember we went the first year because, like, dude, there's a bid event in Visalia. We're definitely going. It was so small. I could tell our parents weren't thrilled about it. And so the next year we put a caveat on it. Hey, our prep teams are definitely going to go to Visalia. And any teams that don't have a bid to Summit by this time are going to go to Visalia as well and, pick up some bids, right? And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just hard. It's just competitive. It's hard to get bids. It's really hard to get bids to the Summit. So, if there's an opportunity to get a bid, I'm not even sure, let's just say Senior Black, right? Just because Senior Black didn't get a bid at Spirit Sports or at, GSSA or wherever, doesn't mean they're not good enough to go and compete. There's so many teams. And with so many of these teams paying off judges, how can we get a bid at these places, So, but there's so many teams trying to get bids. They only give out like 9 bids at these events, and there's like literally hundreds of teams at them. So it's hard to get bids, especially with the different things. So I don't mind teams scheduling in a cupcake if there's a one available to go. You should definitely not do your whole season like that. Not if it's really important for you to be competitive. And if it's important for you to be competitive and compete against the best teams, when you compete against, the best teams, it's a barometer to see where you are. You go to Spirit Sports or NCA or, these big events, Cheer Sport, whatever it is, to see where you are in the rankings, to see how good of a team you are. Right. So anyway, I wouldn't do my whole season, with a bunch of Visalias. Your parents probably wouldn't be too happy, especially if they're an elite team. They probably wouldn't be too happy. The kids probably wouldn't be too thrilled when they just go to competitions knowing they're the only ones there. But I think one every so often, we used to end the season with one back at PCM just to get ready for the Summit, right? Like, hey, we're gonna make Summit changes and we'll have this one just to kind of get the kinks out, and then before we head into the Summit. So I think you could use them advantageously. But again, I want you to schedule a season like that. So anyway, B, what you got on that? I once wrote a blog called Your Daughter Won't Fly Forever, but with Fly Right, she might fly a little bit longer. There's more pressure on flyers than any other position out there. Help your athlete fly right. Fly Right by Tumble Track is the personal stunt stand that helps cheerleaders fine-tune their skills and perfect their body control. Made with heavy steel construction, it's easy to store away when not in use, so your athlete can train anytime, anywhere. Give the gift of flying a little bit longer with Fly Right by Tumble Track. Link in the show notes.
I can understand why parents would want to go to a competition where you're probably guaranteed to earn a bid if you're a really good team. When I say guaranteed, I don't want to say guaranteed lightly because nothing is guaranteed, but I can understand why parents would want to go to a bid event where we're a really good team, we're a pretty good team, we're going to get a bid here. But on the flip side, like, this is kind of like a quote from, Bring It On. Like, if you're the best of the best, you compete against the best of the best. And that's the only way that I can explain it is for me and my daughters, I don't want them to earn a bid from a competition that there was only, a couple teams there. Like, I want them to earn a bid because they're that good that they earned a bid. Because what's going to happen is if you're earning a bid for Summit, everybody knows how crazy expensive Summit is. I haven't even went, and I know how crazy
Mm-hmm.
expensive it is. So you're going to spend all this money, if you're here in California, traveling, across the country, and you spend all this money to what, place 10th?
Mm-hmm.
Usually like you go to these competitions because you want to win, right? Nobody goes into anything
Yeah.
wanting to lose. So if you go to a competition where there's really good teams and you don't know if you're going to get a bid or not, but you come out on top and you get a bid. Well, you competed against some of these best of the best teams. So when you go to Summit, you've already competed against them. You've already beat them before. Things change. I understand that, but I just feel
Yeah.
like you have a better chance of winning and you know what your competition is going to be. Me personally, like I don't want
Yeah.
to go across the country to, compete against all these amazing teams when my team's just mediocre.
Yeah. The hard part about bids, here's the real hard part about bids is that you're competing against the rest of the competition. You're not just competing within your division, you're competing against the rest of the competition. And I'm not sure the scores are comparable division to division, right? That's the hard part about bids is that the scores aren't necessarily comparable because sometimes there's just a high scoring division. I remember way back in the day, we hadn't gotten a paid bid with like our level 4 team. And so we go to USA Nationals. We're like, okay, there's our chance to get a paid bid with our level 4 team. And the level 4, all the level 4s were super low. They're all scoring. And at the time, it was low for the competition. This would be a low score now, but they're all scoring like 93s. That was just low that was a decent score at the time, but it was low for the competition. They're all scoring 93s, all the level 4s from, juniors to seniors, co-ed, everyone's scoring in the 93s. Like all the best teams are scoring in the 93s. Meanwhile, the level 2s are all scoring in the 96s, right? And it's not that I think every level 2 was better than all the level 4s. It's just that scoring panel was just scoring them low. And so sometimes so that happens a lot where that panel is just scoring everyone low. Not that the level 4s were out of order. Like let's say all of those, like everyone won who was supposed to win, but those scores just don't cross over to compete against all the level 2s, right? And so that's the hard part about bids is sometimes your panel just isn't scoring high enough to compete against the other levels for whatever reason. So that happens a lot. And so when that happens, it's hard. Like that's why summit bids are really, really hard because there's so much that is out of your control when it comes to getting a bid. Now I'll tell a different story. This is actually the next year after that. We had a level 4 team. This is at PCM Angels, and we didn't get the bid at the first few events. We didn't get a at-large bid at our first few events. And SCV, they were the defending Summit champions. They hadn't gotten a bid at their first few events, right? And we're competing against them all season long. We have 2 bid events left. Both of us have 2 bid events left. We have NCAA All-Star Nationals, and we have USA Nationals, right? And look, when you put together your competition schedule, you don't really count NCAA as like a bid event, right? You're like, they give out bid, especially at the time. Now, if you win, it's an automatic bid to the summit. But back then, it wasn't an automatic bid, even if you won. And so it's already hard enough to win at NCAA, let alone win at NCAA, let alone get a bid there. So I'm thinking, dude, us and SCV, neither one of us have a bid yet. We're both going to go to NCAA. It's not very likely that either one of us get it there. There's literally thousands of teams, or not thousands. There's a 1,000+ teams, and there's 9 bids, right, that they're going to give out there, right? So it's just very unlikely that you get a bid there. And then we're both going to go to USA Nationals, and only one of us is going to be able to get a bid there, right? The way the scores are set up, the way the bid declaration was set up, only one of us is going to be able to get a bid at USA. Now, I remember thinking, one of us isn't going to Summit this year. Either we're not, and they were the defending Summit champions. Now, luckily for all of us, we were on a high scoring panel at NCA. We ended up scoring like a 98 that year at NCA, and it just obliterated everyone else's scores. So we won NCA that year. We were the best team in the division, but we still had a very high score. We had a very inflated score. So real quick, we had a 98 at NCA that year. And at Summit, we had a 94, right? And this is way back in the day, right? And so that was like perfectly normal. But like, just to say, we had really inflated score at NCA. And it wasn't because we paid off judges. We were just hands down better than everyone. But we had a high scoring panel. We scored a 98. We get a paid bid. Now, because we got the paid bid, it left up a bid at USA Nationals, which SCV had gotten. If we wouldn't have gotten that paid bid at NCA, then one of us wasn't going to go to Summit. So I say all that to say there are times throughout the season when it's really hard just because of the way things play out for teams to get bids. And it's not because the team isn't deserving. It's just because of the way scores play out and panels play out, because you have to have the right routine at the right time with the right panel on your side. And sometimes you just don't get the panel on your side, and so again, I don't mind that teams, if they want to strategically if you have a good team and you want to strategically and there's not a ton of those like cupcake events left in the industry. It's not like there's a ton of them left. Maybe there aren't any in California left anymore. Like every big event here now is a real, you gotta go and compete and earn it. But I'm guessing there probably are some pockets in the country that still have like pretty easy events where there aren't a lot of people, but they have bid events there. But I guess wildcard bids are still a thing. So I don't know. But you just need a ticket. You just need a ticket to the dance, and then you make it happen. So I don't know.
And you get that ticket by paying off judges, right?
That's how you do it, baby. That's how you do it. Crazy. It's just wild to me. Guys, there's, I don't know. When I look at our routines, our winning routines, I look at them and go, yeah, we deserve to win that year, right? Like I look at them and go, and when you look at some of these routines, you go, yeah, they were really good. They deserve to, like, I don't know. Can we name a routine where we really felt that team did not have any business? Again, now you can split hairs between Senior Elite and Panthers and go, well, I personally thought Panthers routine was better than Senior Elite, or I personally thought, this team was better than them. But has there ever been a time when we really looked at a team and we were like, really? That team won? Of all the teams in the division, it was that team? So, I don't know. This is actually a very true story. I had a guy. I'm not going to say his name. I should say his name, though. This is so true. We had a choreographer. He came in. This is not Brendan. This is back at PCM. We had a choreographer come in. He did our dance, right? He did our dance. He gave us a dance. He was like, oh, yeah, right? He loved it. He thought it was the bee's knees. He was a choreographer and he hosted competitions, right? So he went to his competition. He was judging the event. He judged our dance. He gave us an 8-7. What are we talking about, man? This is your dance. You choreographed the dance. You gave us an 8-7? I called him out on it, too. I was like, hey, man, what's up with this score? He's like, yeah, looking back, it could have moved more. It's like, are you kidding me right now? So, so that really happened. That's a true story. 100% true story. I'm like an 8'7", homie. So, um, if there's a time for a judge to be biased, it was right there. I always have a relationship with the guy. It was his dance, his work. It could have been like, hey, that dance is a 10, right? No, 8'7". So anyway, we've talked long enough, B. Oh no, we gotta get to your questions. I was gonna,
Okay.
we've talked, but we gotta get to your questions, B. So episode 99, I went introspective and talked about, life on the podcast, but it was old school solo episode. So I answered a few of those questions. So the people want to hear from you, B. So B, how do we decide on topics and themes for each episode, and what factors influence those decisions? Gym owners, do you find yourself working 100-hour weeks? And then did you know that being underpaid and undervalued is the #1 cause for owner burnout? The business coaches at Next Gen, some of my good friends, can help you get out of that rut. They, in fact, are gym owners themselves, so they've been in your shoes. The Next Gen coaches work alongside gym owners to help them grow their programs and build their profits. So if you want to learn more about how Next Gen can help you, book a call at nextgenowners.com.
So topics for the podcast. Usually, you pretty much decide the main topics we're going to talk about. You're a little bit more detailed with everything than I am. You kind of have it lined out. But if I see something on the parents' pages, or if I'm at a competition, I'll shoot you a text and be like, hey, we need to talk about this on the podcast. Most of the time it's just, really you deciding what we want to talk about. And I feel like I just kind of throw my 2 cents in every now and then. There's been times I feel like that I've sent you quite a few things with parents, and you're like, I don't want to talk about that. That hasn't happened very often. But you'll be like, oh, let's save this for, next episode, because I kind of have something that ties into that, that type of thing. So I think it's just random, kind of throw it up in the air type things most of the time.
And you gotta give yourself more credit, because you text me, it's like every competition, you're like, this just happened, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, okay. And what's funny is when you called me after jams, or when you text me about jams, you're like, Jason, why isn't the jams award ceremony as good here as it is there? And I'm like, what do you mean? And you went off about it, and I was like, no, they do that at All-Star Nationals, B. And I was just like, oh, you must not ever be there for it, because your kids could be earlier. But that was so funny. So you get, there's things when you're like, Jason, we're talking about this. But yeah, you do send some really good things that we should talk about. You we've gotten a good wavelength, and you've been like, hey, I think we should talk about this one that you brought up, the Crazy Mama Cheer. You knew it was gonna rile me up. You're like, let's do this. So I'm like, get my blood boiling.
Oh.
She's gaslighting me, people.
Okay, I guess it's more
you were
of a balance.
The person who wrote it. You wrote that comment. You put on incognito. I'm like, yo, we're gonna get Jason all riled up on this one.
Oh, I guess I didn't really realize that I send things too. I forgot about the jams thing. That jams one's really had me riled up, and I'm thinking in my head I don't know what Jason has going on right now, but I am blowing him up right now because you're right. My kids just compete earlier in the day, so that one was a good one.
Yeah. Real quick, in case I didn't really explain it well. Brittany's kids are on the local middle school team, RMS, and they competed at Jams Nationals, right? She also has kids in our program. We compete at Jams All-Star Nationals. And Jams, I've said it for years. Hey, Jams is the best award ceremony in the business. But apparently B has never actually been to the big award ceremony I've always talked about on the podcast. And so when she goes to the middle school award ceremony, she sees this big event, this big spectacle that it is like, why don't we get this at All-Star Nationals? And as she's texting me, I'm thinking, she said, why aren't the award ceremonies the same? So I'm like, she's like, no, it's way better at at middle school nationals. And I'm thinking to myself, they put on an even bigger show at middle school nationals than they do at all-star nationals. I'm like blown away. I'm like, I can't even fathom that they would, how it could be an even bigger spectacle than that. And yeah, you sent me the video and I was like, oh no, that's what they do at all-star nationals too. I guess you're just never there. Like, it never occurred to me that you wouldn't, of all these years, you have still not have seen like the regular all-star nationals one. So anyway, all right. So B, for you, the feedback. I know this is this has been a funny one. What kind of feedback have you received from listeners, and how do you take that feedback into account when producing future episodes?
Well, for the listeners, if you've been with us a while, Jason created a like review thing, and you can like, you know, he's got like a bunch of questions on there. You can rate things. He's got questions about like what could we do better, what do you like about the show, question, all that stuff. So he sends me the link, and I start like, I'm like, oh, I want to see, because he does all like the behind the scenes things, and he sends me the link, and I'm like reading it. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I can't even remember because it was so long ago, like what was said, but I like really took it to heart when I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have. I don't know. But I feel like everybody receives feedback differently, and everybody's opinions are different. So, I could think a white car looks awesome and someone could think it doesn't. That's probably not a good scenario. But I feel like opinions are learning curves. Like sometimes you can take someone's opinion and learn from it. And sometimes you can take someone's opinion and just be like, yeah, well, that's your opinion. Keep it in your lane, So you can either grow from it or you can throw it out the window. I don't really listen or look at those things anymore because I feel like they're going to make me mad. And honestly, like, I have fun doing the podcast, and there's quite a few of you that have like reached out to me, and all the vibes are very positive, and so that's what I appreciate the most. I guess I just like now don't really like listen to other people's opinion. I just kind of like do my thing. Like I am who I am. Sometimes I make a mockery of myself and sometimes I don't, I guess.
You're killing it, B.
So that's just for me. That's just for me. Like I just, unless it's a good opinion, I'm just like, whatever about it.
Right? Now, I saw something on Twitter one time. It said something like, when people talk bad about you, you don't have to believe them. And I'm like, man, that's such a good quote. Like, it's such a good quote. Like, if people say something bad about you, you don't have to believe them. And yeah, I just love it. So I remember we did those surveys, and I remember you just texted me one day and you're like, I'm gonna stop reading these. And I was like, okay, P. So that's my life as a cheer director. That's my life every day. I get, people mad at me for something I did. So all right, here we go. What goals? But I will say this, B, you're killing it. Let's go. This show is not this show without B more. There, let's go. Stop playing with me right now. Last question, and then we'll wrap up and get out of here. What are your goals for the podcast moving forward, and how do you plan to continue growing and evolving the show?
I would say that my goals for the podcast would, to get it out to more parents, would be to get the podcast out to more parents. I really would like to get the podcast out to more involved cheer dads. I mean, you go to all these competitions and you see all these cheer dads, and some of them are involved, some of them aren't. I don't know who is involved and who isn't. But I think there's a lot for cheer dads to learn about this podcast, especially cheer dads that are heavily involved. Because we, even at our gym, like, I can just think of one off the top of my head, one dad that, he's taking his daughters to all the competitions, and he's the one that braids her hair and used to help do her makeup and things like that. So and I know he actually listens to this podcast, so I think this podcast could help a lot of dads. I mean, even like my husband, we were at dinner last night with my family and we were talking about cheer, and it was kind of cool to hear him talk about the competitions.
Mm-hmm.
So to get the podcast out to more cheer dads, that'd be like awesome. And I think just like growing and evolving the show happens over time. Um, back in some of the earlier episodes, I probably said things that now I'm like, I would never say that again. um,
Mm-hmm.
or, we've recorded, and after we're done recording, I'm like, why did I even go off on that tangent? But I think like the growing and evolving happens over time. You learn and you live, and those type of things just, yeah, I don't know, like just growing and evolving, I feel like happens over
Yeah.
time. And then hearing people's opinions, kind of like it helps change my thought process sometimes on things, because we all think differently. So there's a lot that people can learn about this podcast. And not even like, not all episodes like with me, like episodes when you have like the guests on and things like that, I think that can help parents too. So
Yeah.
that's probably it for me.
There we go. B, we're gonna keep doing our thing. It's fun. It's been fun,
It
B.
is.
Dude, 100 episodes. It's been a blast. You've been a huge part of it. It has. It's been a lot of fun. It's cool to get on once a week, and we just sit here and talk to each other, and we laugh and we do whatever. And it's cool that people have decided to like join us in our journey, where we're just like, just two people talking about cheerleading all day. And yeah, so it's been fun. So yeah, hopefully parents are learning, hopefully coaches are learning, hopefully you guys are staying entertained, and share it with a cheer dad. And guys, last time, I've never paid off anyone. 5, 6, 7, 8.
We're out.
We're out. Hey, Let's Talk Cheer podcast listeners. Although this episode has come to an end, there are a few other cheer podcasts out there that you can add to your weekly routine. If you're a gym owner or gym director and want to dive more into the business side of things, then check out the Connecting People and Profits podcast with host Dan Cotton. If you're a former cheerleader and want to hear the success stories from other former cheer athletes after their cheering days are done, then you'd love the Life After Cheer podcast with host Danielle Donovan. And if you're a cheer parent and need another cheer parent to relate to and want to hear things from a cheer mom's perspective, then the Cheer Mom podcast is for you. Check one of them out, check them all out, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching the Let's Talk Cheer podcast. Definitely subscribe so you never miss out on anything from the show.